At the roof of the world, time moves differently. The winds scream louder, the silence is heavier, and death, it waits in stillness, cloaked in snow. Mount Everest, tallest mountain on Earth, has long stood as the ultimate test of human endurance, ambition, and obsession. We know that in 1953, Sir Edmund Hillary and Tenzing Norgay made history when they reached its summit. But long before their triumph, in the early years of the 20th century, two men stood on the edge of immortality. Their names were George Mallory and Andrew Sandy Irvine. They vanished on the slopes of Everest in 1924, swallowed by a blizzard and time itself. But the question remains, did they actually make it to the top before they died? And if they did, what does that mean for the story we've always believed about Everest? This, is one of the greatest unsolved mysteries in the history of exploration. Mount Everest, known to the Tibetans as or a goddess mother of the world, was first measured in 1856 by the Great Trigonometrical Survey of British India. The result, 29,002 feet above sea level, later updated to 29,032 feet. It was, and still is, the highest point on Earth, and that fact alone ignited a fire within the minds of explorers. In the early 20th century, summiting Everest was more than just a climb. It was an act of imperial pride, a symbol of human dominance over nature. Entered George Mallory, British, poetic, romantic, and dangerously ambitious. Born in 1886, he was drawn to Everest like a moth to a flame. He attempted the mountain in 1921, 1922, and finally, in 1924. Joining him on that fateful third expedition was a 22-year-old engineering prodigy, Andrew Sandy Irvine, young, athletic, and skilled with oxygen equipment. The plan was bold, perhaps reckless. Mallory and Irvine would make a final push for the summit with rudimentary oxygen tanks and barely their cold-weather gear by today's standards. They left their high camp on June 8th, never to be seen alive again. The last known sighting of Mallory and Irvine came from teammate Noel Odell. At around 12:50 p.m. on June 8th, Odell claimed he saw two tiny black dots ascending the final pyramid, just below the summit. Then, the weather shifted. A sudden snow squall enveloped the peak. And just like that, they were gone. For the next 75 years, what happened after that moment became a subject of endless speculation. Did they reach the summit and die on the way down? Or did they perish before ever reaching it? Without bodies, without evidence, without the camera they carried, the mountain held its secret. Some might ask, why does it matter who reached the summit first? The answer is layered. If Mallory and Irvine summited in 1924, they would predate Hillary and Norgay by 29 years. It would rewrite the record books, challenge national pride, and fundamentally reshape the story of one of mankind's greatest achievements. But more than that, it speaks to something deeper: our relationship with truth, with legacy, with how we choose to remember the dead. If they failed, they died in pursuit. If they succeeded, they died as legends. But which is it? In 1999, a team led by American climber Conrad Anker set out to solve the mystery. Their goal was to search the area known as the Yellow Band, a stretch of rock at around 27,000 feet believed to be where Mallory may have fallen. What they found stunned the world. There, lying face down in the snow, perfectly preserved by the ice, was George Mallory's body, his clothing tattered but intact, a broken leg, a severe head injury. But there were signs he hadn't simply collapsed in place. He was roped when he fell, perhaps tied to Irvine. His goggles were in his pocket, suggesting it may have been dark when he fell. He had carefully wrapped items in his coat. He had not given up. But one thing was missing. The small Kodak vest pocket camera they carried to document their climb was nowhere to be found. It was believed Irvine had been the one carrying it. The hope was, and still is, that if found and undeveloped, it could contain a photo from the summit. The legend of the camera is Everest's most tantalizing clue. If it exists, and if the film survived it, might finally answer the question, did they make it? Some experts believe the cold, dry air of Everest could have preserved the film. Others think that after 100 years it would be unusable. But the question persists. Where is Irvine? In 1933, an expedition claimed to have seen a body high on the mountain, far from where Mallory was found. But storms and conditions prevented a full recovery. In recent years, National Geographic funded an advanced expedition with modern tech drones, radar, and infrared scans too. Then, in 2024, climbers reported a chilling discovery. Still in its boot, protruding from the ice near the summit ridge, it was believed to be Earth. But again, the camera was not recovered. Still isn't done hiding its truth. Segment 6. Could they have done it? Let's talk logistics. Could Mallory and Irvine actually have reached the summit of Everest in 1924? The conditions were brutal. The gear was primitive, oxygen systems unreliable, but Mallory was an experienced climber. Irvine was mechanically gifted. Together, they had determination and possibly luck. If they were at the second step by 12:50 p.m., as Odell believed, then summiting was within the realm of possibility. Today's climbers say it's plausible but not guaranteed. Even Conrad Anker, who retraced their possible route, said climbing the second step without modern equipment was nearly impossible. Yet maybe they found a way, maybe they free-climbed it, maybe they didn't. The truth remains suspended in snow and legend. We talk so much about achievement, but we forget the cost. Mallory left behind a wife, Ruth, and 3 children. Irvine was barely out of college. In one of his last letters, Mallory wrote, "It is almost unthinkable with this effort, but the only way is up, and I am ready to go." He also carried with him a photograph of his wife, Ruth, which he had vowed to leave at the summit when his body was found in 1999. The photo wasn't with him. Some see that as proof he made it to the top and left it there. Others say it could have been lost in the fall. We don't know. We may never know. Nearly a century has passed since 2 men disappeared into the thin air of the world's highest mountain. They became more than climbers. They became questions frozen in time. Mallory is still quoted for his famous answer to why he wanted to climb Everest. Because it's there. But perhaps the real answer was deeper. Maybe Mallory and Irvine weren't chasing a summit, but a place in history. Maybe they found it. Or maybe they still lie, quietly, in Everest's shadow, undisturbed and undefeated in their mystery. Some mountains are climbed not for glory, but for the stories they leave behind. And perhaps Mallory and Irvine's greatest achievement wasn't reaching the top, but keeping us wondering if they did. Because sometimes a mystery doesn't need an answer to be unforgettable. What does the Voynich Manuscript say? Deep inside the vaults of Yale University, beneath the quiet hum of fluorescent lights and the heavy hush of history, there lies a book. Its pages are filled with strange symbols, indecipherable words, and illustrations that defy reality. It's not bound in gold or adorned with jewels. It doesn't glow or whisper, but to those who've studied it, it may as well be magic. Because this manuscript, this single book, has defeated every linguist, every codebreaker, and every scholar who has dared to challenge it. They call it the Voynich Manuscript. No one knows who wrote it. No one knows what language it's in, if it's even a language at all. No one knows what it's trying to say. And for over 600 years, it has remained perfectly, maddeningly silent. But what if it's not nonsense? What if the Voynich Manuscript isn't gibberish but a message from a mind lost to time? What if someone, long ago, tried to pass on a secret too complex, too radical, or too dangerous to be understood in their own age? And what if we're still not ready to hear it? The story begins not in a university archive, but in a dusty collection in the early 20th century. In 1912, a rare book dealer named Wilfred Voynich discovered the manuscript inside a trunk of ancient writings, buried in a Jesuit college near Rome. He was instantly captivated. The manuscript was unlike anything he or anyone had ever seen. Roughly 240 vellum pages, filled with spindly, looping handwriting that flowed across the page like a dream. There were diagrams of unknown plants' leaves, roots, and flowers that didn't exist in any known botanical study. Cosmological charts, wheels within wheels, zodiac symbols twisted into unfamiliar forms, and most unsettling of all, illustrations of naked women bathing in pools of green liquid, connected by a maze of tubes. As if part of some lost medical or alchemical ritual, Voynich believed he had found something monumental. Perhaps a lost work of Roger Bacon, the 13th century monk and early scientist. If it could be deciphered, he thought, it might rewrite the history of science itself. But over a century has passed, and the manuscript has yielded nothing. Cryptographers from World War II tried to break its code. The NSA studied it. So did top linguists, mathematicians, and AI systems. And yet the text has no known parallels. The alphabet used in the manuscript doesn't match any known writing system. It seems systematic. There's grammar, repetition, structured, but none of it maps to any real language. This has led to one of the most hotly debated questions in historical scholarship. Is it real or an elaborate hoax? Some believe the manuscript is a fraud, perhaps created by Voynich himself to sell as a curiosity. Others argue it could have been an older forgery from the 16th or 17th century, crafted to impress royalty or alchemists with a fake secret knowledge. But those theories hit a wall in 2009, when carbon dating tests on the vellum confirmed that the parchment itself dates to between 1404 and 1438, over 100 years before Voynich was born. And the ink, it too matches ink mixtures used in that period. Whoever made this book lived 6 centuries ago. But why would someone in the 15th century go to such lengths to create something no one could read? The mystery deepens when you consider what's not there. The manuscript doesn't include any known religious references unusual. For a time when nearly all books were written by or for the church, there's no cross, no saints, no Christ. Instead, the themes appear to revolve around plants, women, stars, biology, and something else, something elusive. Some think it's a medical guide for women, perhaps focused on fertility or healing. Others suspect it SEA Pharmacopoeia, a catalog of herbal treatments written in a lost language. One hypothesis is that it's the last relic of a dying culture, a script from a people we've never identified. Their voices vanished, their knowledge drowned by time. Then there's the possibility that it's written in a code so complex, it requires both a cipher and a cultural key to understand, like trying to decode a medical textbook in Latin. written with jokes only monks from a specific abbey would understand. But there are stranger theories too. Some researchers believe the manuscript isn't encrypted, it's constructed using a natural language that no longer exists. A hybrid tongue. Maybe a personal script invented by a solitary genius whose knowledge outpaced his age. Others go further. They say the manuscript was written under altered consciousness. Perhaps the work of a mystic, or a madman. Maybe it was divinely inspired or demonically channeled. Some even claim it's a message from extraterrestrials. Not because it looks alien, but because it is so perfectly resistant to our understanding, as though designed not for human interpretation. Artificial intelligence has been brought into the fight. In recent years, deep learning algorithms trained on dozens of ancient languages were unleashed on the Voynich text. The results? Conflicting. Some AI systems detect patterns consistent with real human language. Others flag randomness. One model even claimed it may be a form of Hebrew, scrambled and encoded, but the interpretation fell apart under expert review. So we return, again and again, to the question, if this book is fake, why was it written on genuine medieval parchment, using consistent linguistic rules, with no spelling errors across hundreds of pages? And if it's real, why can't anyone read it? Some of the most haunting images lie in the so-called biological section of the manuscript. Dozens of women, drawn nude, interact with bizarre pipes and structures. They bathe in tubs connected by a web of vessels, as if part of some arcane system of circulation or transformation. Their poses are casual, familiar, not ritualistic but oddly scientific. It's as if the illustrator was trying to explain a complex system of life, reproduction, or energy, but with no common symbols to guide us. There are zodiac symbols, Scorpio, Sagittarius, Pisces, but they don't align with standard astrological charts. They seem customized, personal. These aren't the signs of public horoscopes. These are diagrams of something else. Then there are the plants, over 100 illustrations of flora that don't exist. Some resemble known herbs. Others are composite sleeves from one plant, roots from another, flowers from a third. Are they symbolic? Are they meant to represent medicinal properties? Are they completely imagined? Or more chilling, are they depictions of plants that once existed and have gone extinct? Botanists have tried to match them for years. No one has succeeded. There's no title page, no author's name, no date. The manuscript opens and closes abruptly, like someone ripped it from a larger work or never finished it. Was it abandoned? Hidden? Protected? One page contains what looks like a fold-out diagram and elaborate circular chart, possibly a cosmology or calendar, but the symbols within it lead nowhere. Every attempt to decode it spirals into contradiction. Even the handwriting raises questions. Scholars believe it was written by at least 2 different people, possibly more yet. The style is consistent. The flow of the ink suggests a hand familiar with the script, not someone fabricating each character. There are even corrections in the text edits, revisions, insertions. Someone was thinking, refining. This wasn't a performance. It was a process. And then, there's the mystery of the missing pages. Several folios are gone cut cleanly, surgically from the binding. Were they lost? Stolen? Or did someone remove them deliberately, fearing what they contained? The manuscript has passed through kings, collectors, and scientists. At one point, it was owned by Holy Roman Emperor Rudolph II, who allegedly believed it was the work of a wizard. He paid 600 ducats for it, a fortune at the time. From there, it traveled quietly through Europe, whispered about, rarely understood, until Voynich brought it to light in the 20th century, and scholars fell under its spell all over again. Today, you can see the manuscript online. Resolution scans allow you to flip through every page. Thousands have tried to decode it. Amateur sleuths, professional cryptanalysts, linguists, conspiracy theorists, each one comes away humbled. Because there's something about the Voynich manuscript that refuses interpretation. Maybe it's a mirror, maybe it reflects what each of us brings to its science, mystery, madness, wonder. Maybe that's its purpose, or maybe it's waiting for the right eyes, the right mind, someone not yet born, someone who sees through the veil. Until then, it sits in silence, unread, a message in a bottle from another world, not of space, but of time. We may never know what it says, but in a way, that's the most powerful thing about it, because a secret that cannot be told is the most haunting story of all. Was King Arthur ever real, or just a beautiful lie? For over 1,000 years, the legend of King Arthur has lived on, through books, movies, and the whispers of old castles across Britain. We all know the story: Camelot, the Knights of the Round Table, the powerful wizard Merlin, and of course, the sword in the stone. It's a tale that feels like it has to be based on truth, right? But here's the thing. If Arthur did exist, his story was likely far less magical than we've been led to believe. The earliest records that even mention him come from the 9th century, and they don't talk about a king with a crown, just a battle leader, maybe, who fought the invading Saxons. And even those records? They're fuzzy. Some historians think they're closer to folklore than fact. And what about the famous Tintagel castle in Cornwall, said to be Arthur's birthplace. Archaeologists have dug and dug, but so far, no real proof, no throne, no sword, no undeniable trace that Arthur ever walked those stones. So, was King Arthur a real man, lost in time, or just a story created to inspire hope during dark days? The truth may be buried too deep to ever uncover, but maybe that's why the legend still lives on. Because sometimes, it's the mystery that makes the myth so powerful. What happened to the Mary Celeste? The ocean holds secrets. Some are buried in the sand, others beneath rusted wreckage, but a few drift, just out of reach. Whispers carried by waves, footsteps that vanish on wet wood, stories half told by seagulls circling above an empty deck. And among these tales, one name echoes louder than the rest. Mary Celeste. An abandoned ship, a missing crew, a lifeboat gone, and not a single sign of struggle. No blood, no goodbye. Just an eerie silence where there should have been life. To this day, it remains one of the greatest maritime mysteries of all time. What happened on board the Mary Celeste? The year was 1872. A sturdy brigantine ship, 282 tons, freshly refitted and renamed Mary Celeste, was preparing to set sail from New York, her destination Genoa, Italy. She carried a valuable but hazardous cargo, 1,701 barrels of denatured alcohol, highly flammable and intended for industrial use. Captain Benjamin Briggs was at the helm, a respected mariner, 37 years old, deeply religious, known for his caution and professionalism. Sailing with him was his wife Sarah and their 2-year-old daughter Sophia. The rest of the crew consisted of 7 experienced sailors, all trusted, all handpicked. On November 7, 1872, the Mary Celeste left port, cutting through Atlantic winds under calm skies. 10 people on board. No one knew it would be their last voyage. 1 month later, December 5th, 1872, the British brig Dei Grazia was making its way across the Atlantic, about 400 miles east of the Azores Islands. Through the midday haze, a strange sight appeared, a ship, drifting aimlessly. No signal? As Dei Grazia approached, her crew recognized the name on the hull, Mary Celeste. Captain David Morehouse, who knew Briggs personally, was alarmed. Why would Briggs abandon his vessel? Why no signs of trouble? A boarding party was sent. What they found was eerie. The Mary Celeste was entirely intact. Her sails were partially unfurled. The ship was seaworthy, though wet from recent storms. Food and water for 6 months remained in the hold, the cargo mostly untouched, but the lifeboat was missing. And so were the captain, his family, and the entire crew, gone without a trace. The logbook remembered its final entry made on the morning of November 25th, over a week earlier. It placed the ship near the Azores. Nothing unusual was recorded. Personal belongings were undisturbed. The crew's foul-weather gear was still on board, strange considering recent storms. Maps, charts, even musical instruments were left behind. The galley was stocked. A sewing machine sat with work still in progress. A child's toy was tucked near a bunk. There were no signs of struggle, no fire, no explosion, no evidence of mutiny. The ship had simply been abandoned. The Dei Grazia crew brought the Mary Celeste to Gibraltar to claim salvage rights. What followed was a bizarre legal inquest. British officials were suspicious. They suspected foul play, even murder. The idea of finding a perfectly functional ship deserted in the middle of the ocean seemed too unbelievable. The court examined every detail: the cargo, the crew, the captain's past, the vessel's condition. A few barrels of alcohol were found empty, but not enough to suggest looting. No bloodstains, no gunpowder, no damage to the lifeboat davits that would suggest a hurried escape. And yet, 10 people had vanished. In the end, the court reluctantly awarded salvage money, but reduced the amount, still hinting at possible deception. But no one was ever charged, and the mystery deepened. Over the years, countless theories have emerged, each more compelling or outlandish than the last. Theory 1. Mutiny or foul play. Could the crew have turned on Captain Briggs? Possibly, but no valuables were taken. No signs of struggle or violence were found. Briggs was highly respected and had personally hired every sailor on board. Theory 2. Pirates. Unlikely. The ship's cargo and crew possessions were untouched. There were no signs of boarding. Theory 3. Alcohol fumes and panic. Some believe that vapors from the alcohol cargo may have leaked. Fearing an imminent explosion, Briggs might have ordered everyone into the lifeboat as a precaution. This would explain the ship's intact state. But why would they not return once the danger passed? Did their lifeboat break loose? Was it swamped by waves? Theory 4. A waterspout or rogue wave. Nature is cruel at sea. A sudden storm, waterspout, or rogue wave may have swept someone overboard. In a panic, the rest may have tried to rescue them only to be lost themselves. Theory 5. Seismic. A more modern theory suggests an underwater earthquake might have rattled the ship, breaking the barrels and releasing alcohol fumes. Again, panic and abandonment may have followed. Theory 6. Paranormal. The Mary Celeste has entered popular culture as a ghost ship. Some speak of sea monsters, alien abduction, even the Bermuda Triangle, even the Bermuda Triangle despite the ship not being near it. To understand the mystery, we must return to the mind of Captain Briggs. He was no reckless sailor. He carried his wife and baby daughter on this voyage. Would he really order them into a small lifeboat over an imagined threat? Briggs was methodical.com, a man of faith. If he abandoned ship, it must have been for a reason he truly believed warranted it. Something immediate, something terrifying. But what? One clue that haunts the case is the missing lifeboat. It was gone, neatly lowered. This suggests an organized evacuation, not a chaotic escape. But the seas were rough. A lifeboat in open Atlantic waves could have drifted for miles or sunk without a trace. Still, no survivors, no body, no wreckage of the boat was ever found. It was as if the crew evaporated. The Mary Celeste continued to sail, changing hands over the years, but she seemed cursed. Her later captains faced repeated misfortunes, crew sickness, financial ruin. Eventually, in 1885, she was intentionally wrecked off Haiti in an insurance fraud scheme. The plot failed. The ship broke apart in shallow waters. But the legend? It survived. Writers from Sir Arthur Conan Doyle to Stephen King have been captivated by her tale. Hollywood has dramatized it. TV specials have analyzed it. Yet no theory has been able to claim certainty. Sometimes, in the haze of mystery, we forget the human story. 10 people were lost. A captain who wanted a better life for his family. A mother who packed toys for her child. A toddler, playing with dolls in a ship's cabin. As the Atlantic winds howled outside, they weren't characters in a ghost story. They were real people. And whatever happened on that voyage ended their story without a single word. The Mary Celeste endures because it sits in the narrow gap between logic and fear. It reminds us that even in the age of maps, radars, and satellites, the ocean remains an untamed wilderness. A place where, even today, ships vanish, planes disappear, and answers dissolve. The Mary Celeste didn't just lose its crew, it stole certainty, and that's the scariest thing of all. There are no voices left to speak from that deck. No final log entry that says we are afraid. No note tucked into a lifeboat saying goodbye. Only the hollow sound of waves crashing against empty wood, and a name, painted on a ghost ship, drifting endlessly through time. Mary Celeste.